What is up, guys? Today we'll be discussing the gap between Ohio State and the rest of the Big Ten and how far that gap is and how big it is. Now, before I start this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more college football content, and thank you. Now, we have to start by looking at how Ohio State has fared against the Big Ten as a whole in the college football era to see their recent history against the Big Ten teams. In 2014, after an early non-conference loss to Virginia Tech, Ohio State would go undefeated in conference play, and only 2 of these games were decided by 1 possession. These 2 games were at Minnesota and at Penn State. Ohio State would also go on to win the Big Ten Championship 59-0 against Wisconsin and beat Oregon in the national championship for the first college football playoff national championship game. In 2015, Ohio State would once again maneuver through the Big Ten Conference with ease, starting off 6-0, only having one possession game, that being at Indiana. However, Michigan State would end up giving the Buckeyes their first loss of the 2015 season, resulting in the Spartans winning the Big Ten East. In 2016, Ohio State would go 8-1 in conference play, with their one loss coming to Penn State in the whiteout in a crazy game. Ohio State would also beat Michigan State by 1 and Northwestern by 4, ending conference play with a very controversial double overtime win against the third-ranked Michigan Wolverines. Although Penn State won the Big Ten East and the Big Ten as a whole, Ohio State would sneak into the playoffs at 11-1 just to get hosed by 31-0 by Clemson. In 2017 would see the Buckeyes go 9-1 in conference play. After a 1-point win in an amazing comeback victory over the Penn State Nittany Lions, Ohio State would follow up by getting blown out by Iowa in Iowa City. Ohio State would make quick work of the Big Ten until facing off against undefeated number 3 ranked Wisconsin in the Big Ten Championship. The Buckeyes would win this game 27-21 and end up one spot out of the 2017 college football playoffs. In 2018, Ohio State would stumble to a 9-1 record in Big Ten play. Early in the year, Ohio State would travel to Happy Valley in a comeback from a 12-point deficit with 6 minutes left in the game, and win by 1 point over the Lions for the 2nd straight year in a row. A few weeks later, Ohio State would get blown out by none other than Purdue and Rondell Moore. Ohio State had close calls against Nebraska and Maryland as well, winning those games by a combined 6 points, and they would finish the Big Ten play by beating Northwestern in the Big Ten Championship. 2019, Ohio State would completely dominate Big Ten play throughout the 2019 season. Ohio State went undefeated, with their closest victory being an 11-point win against the number 9 ranked Penn State Nittany Lions, and winning their 3rd straight Big Ten championship. So now, given that history of the college football playoff era, let's look at the numbers. Ohio State has won 3 straight Big Ten championships, has won 4 of the past 6 Big Ten championships in the college football playoff era. In the last 6 seasons, Ohio State has only had 12 Big Ten games decided by one possession. They have a 16-2 record against top East contenders such as Penn State, Michigan, and Michigan State, and a 52-4 overall record in the college football playoff era against Big Ten teams. Now, these numbers are hard to deny, and these numbers really show the dominance of Ohio State over the Big Ten throughout the college football playoff era. And although many Big Ten fans won't admit that the Big Ten is dominated by the Buckeyes, when you look at these numbers, it's hard to ignore them. And even with many top 10 teams consistently in and out of the Big Ten, you have Wisconsin has been consistent the past 6 years. Penn State's resurgence from 2016 has been a consistent top 10 team. Michigan, always in the top 15. Michigan State was a top 10 team until they started recently falling off. Iowa, always ranked and having good seasons in and out every single year. And now with the resurgence of Minnesota, the Big Ten has consistently had these really good teams. And every year, Ohio State just seems to slowly but surely 8-1, 9-0 conference record, and they haven't lost more than 1 conference game since 2011 or 2012, when they had Luke Fickell as interim head coach. And now we're going to look at the top contenders to dethrone Ohio State as the kings of the Big Ten. So the first team we have is Penn State. They definitely pose the biggest threat to Ohio State this year. However, the gap is still pretty significant. Ohio State's talent gap, in just as far as recruiting, certainly Ohio State is a tier above Penn State in that category. However, in terms of returning talent, Penn State does have the advantage, as Ohio State lost so many guys to the league, whereas Penn State did lose some key players, but nowhere near the amount as Ohio State did. So Penn State has a very good chance of contending with Ohio State this year, especially Penn State has the game at home. Maybe there'll be some fans there. We don't really know, but Penn State last year, coming off of an 11-2 season, a lot of momentum. They have a good running back core, and Penn State has played Ohio State close in the past, and it's always been a tough game between these two teams, and it's been one of the more fun matchups and new rivalries in college football. Now, another team we have to keep on the radar is the Wisconsin Badgers. Now, Wisconsin, according to ESPN FPI rankings and their power rankings, Wisconsin is going to be a very good team this year, a projected top 10 offense and a projected top 5 defense. Wisconsin does lose Jonathan Taylor, but they return Jack Cohn, and they return a lot of key guys on both sides of the football. And also this Wisconsin team in the West is heavy favorites. Wisconsin is actually favored more to win the West than Ohio State is to win the East. So when these two teams possibly meet up in Indianapolis, maybe Wisconsin can finally get over this hump. Wisconsin has typically made it to Indianapolis almost every year just to lose to Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan State or whoever the Big Ten East throws at them. So Wisconsin will need to get over that hump and finally win one of these Big Ten championship games. The next team we have is Michigan. Now Michigan, I really don't see Michigan beating Ohio State just because it hasn't been close games in the past. Michigan loses the same amount of talent as Ohio State does. The only difference is Ohio State has been able to recruit a little bit higher than Michigan has been able to, and also Michigan, just that mental aspect of the game. Michigan hasn't been able to compete with Ohio State in a long time. Since 2016 was the last close game. So really, I don't see Michigan doing too well this year, especially without a really good quarterback. Dylan McCaffrey will be okay. And our fourth true contender, the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Now this might throw some people off, but a lot of people are kind of thinking okay, it was a cute thing from Minnesota, one good year, but they'll fall off this year. But I don't think that's the case with them. They returned Tanner Morgan. They have some of their better wide receivers coming back. They do lose Winfield, All-American, but overall Minnesota will be able to replace them. PJ Fleck is turning up the recruiting. So if these two teams meet in Indianapolis, it'll be a very interesting game, and Minnesota does have the chance and does have the capability to pull off the upset in the Big Ten championship game. However, Ohio State, it's just very unlikely because Ohio State is way above them as far as recruiting, talent, coaching. Although PJ Fleck is good, I think Ryan Day is just on another level of coaching. And those are the four teams that have a true possibility to contend with Ohio State to take the league. Now, here are some possible teams that Ohio State plays that could throw them off, like Purdue or an Iowa that we've seen in the previous years. Now, the main team that I have is Indiana. Indiana was a very sneaky good team last year, going 8-5 and almost beating Tennessee. And Indiana returns a lot of their guys from the previous year. So that is why I really like Indiana. They play Indiana coming off of the Nebraska game, and they play Maryland after. So it's not quite a trap game for the Buckeyes, but Indiana is one of those teams to look out for. And last but not least, Michigan State is a trap game as it falls 1 week after they play Iowa and 1 week before they go on the road to play Penn State. So as you can see, it's in between two very important games for the Ohio State Buckeyes, and Michigan State is going to be a team that will not be as good as they were last year. So they could possibly be very sleepy, not really taking Michigan State as seriously or respecting them as much as they should, and Michigan State might be able to keep this game close. And with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And please comment down below who you think poses the biggest threat to Ohio State and their chances of winning a Big Ten championship.